Hello, career thought leaders. Good to see you here today. So, we are going to talk a little bit about career transition today and what's going on in the market. It's really interesting just to see how many people are talking about making a career change. And I'll show you some of those numbers here in just a second. But I wanted to start with a story. It was actually a prospect that I talked to a few years ago. And she was referred to me by one of my other colleagues. She gave me a call and we were chatting for our initial consultation, and she said, I'm just miserable. I have a 2-year-old or maybe a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'm just miserable at work. And being the mom of a 2 and 4-year-old at the time, my kids were 3 and 1, and I remember they were the exact same ages. And I thought, well, yeah, we're just miserable because we have 2 small kids and you never get any time to yourself. And you're always feeling torn between work and home. And I'm not quite sure that changing careers is going to fix that. Maybe some options where you can fix that. But most of the women I know with young kids who do any kind of work feel that same every once in a while, if not more frequently, right? That it's hard. And you're always torn between that career and your family, and all of those pieces are just challenging. And it's very normalizing for people to tell me this because it's hard with 2 young kids, right? And maybe some of you out there have been in that position at some point in your life or are now as moms or dads, and you can kind of commiserate. And so I somewhat commiserated with her, and I asked her, what was she thinking about making a change? What were some of the challenges that she was hoping to resolve in making a change? And she never ended up working with me. And I don't know if just in that 30-minute conversation I was able to help her see this. But oftentimes when things are not great in our lives, we look for something we can change, right? And that's a good thing. Looking for something that we can change that might make us feel better is a good thing. But it doesn't maybe mean that a career change will solve the problems. In fact, and maybe you've worked with clients that this is true, where a career change or trying to make a career change actually makes the problem worse. And so let's talk about that a little bit today. How do we help clients who might just be feeling frustrated and thinking that a career change might solve the problem? And then, of course, we're going to be working with clients where they need to make a career change because something has happened in their career, in the type of work that they're doing, or they're genuinely unhappy in what they do. And how do we help people make those distinctions and figure out what is actually going on in their careers? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I know that I had also said we're going to talk about third-person language and resumes, and we're going to do that later this week live in the group, and maybe we'll also do it on the page if people on the page are interested. But today I just wanted to talk about this because it was really on my mind, and we're seeing so much data out there talking about this. So let's look at some of that data right now. So, and these might be great resources. I'll drop the links into the chat because I think they'd be great resources if you are helping career changers and you want to share some data, arm yourself with some of this data for talking to clients. So this one is a great article. It talks about some Challenger Gray and Christmas data that goes through who is changing careers. So people that are relocating for new opportunities, 37% of job seekers took new roles in smaller firms. So that's interesting. And that's up to 42% in the second quarter. This must be from 2020. Yeah. So 2020 data, but just showing what types of changes people are making. And then down here, it's talking about 1 in 4 women are considering a career change. And so especially if you target women with your services, they're thinking about a career change, and that might be a good thing to start talking about in your marketing, in your conversations. And then let's look at this other one because this is kind of low data. So 1 in 4 is pretty low data compared to some of the other data that I'm seeing. And this other data just shares kind of ridiculously high numbers. But they're collaborated in some ways by other data. So this one says that 60% of women. Well, so this is a Forbes data, and I'm locked out of Forbes because I haven't paid for a subscription. So I'll drop the link in the chat. Maybe you have an extra Forbes article this month. But there's a Forbes article that says 60% of women are looking for a career change. And then this one's actually from the UK. So this is not just an American phenomenon. Hello to our colleagues over there in the UK and Europe in general. But it's actually something that's across the continents. So this is more than half of UK workers plan to make a change in their career in the next 12 months. So that's huge. And this is something that we can help people with and that people need help with. And I also think it's a little bit of a, it's a little bit of a symptom of just people being unhappy and thinking about what could I do to make things better. And their career may or may not be one area where they could make a change and make things better. So how do we help people figure this out? Because I'm sure you have this too, right? Clients come to you and they say, I want to make a career change. And that may or may not really be the challenge. One of the activities that I do with clients, and this is something I got from Susan Britton, is thinking about rating their satisfaction in several areas of their life. So some of you might use the wheel of life, and we showed that a few times ago when we were doing the live, the wheel of life exercise, which has people rate their satisfaction in certain areas. She just did it on a Likert scale. So how happy are you with your financial position? How happy are you with your family life? How happy are you with your, extracurricular or me time outside of family and work kind of life, so that people can really look at what might be the challenge. And even at work, what's not working for you right now? Is it the work-life environment? Is it the type of work that you do? Is it the people that you're working with, or maybe lack of people that you're working with if people are working remote and struggling with that? So there's some questions that you could ask and maybe even put together some kind of an initial intake that people could take. That one would help you get an idea of where they're struggling, but two might even help with their just own self-reflection of, really the challenge right now is my work-life balance. And then I think that was probably the case for this other mother that I chatted with as a prospect, was that she was really struggling with that, not feeling like she was doing enough in either place, instead of really being unhappy with the work that she was doing. And also, if I'm remembering, it was somewhat financial. So where can I find a job where I'd make more money? And those are good things to think about. And then, of course, in the course of our coaching, talking about the trade-offs, because if we get a position that makes more money, that might be even worse for our work-life balance, depending on what that role is. So feel free to put in the comments, what are some other areas that you would think people could evaluate? We're looking at finance, their work-life balance, their family life, their own personal interests. Are they getting time to do those? Their work in terms of their workplace, their work people, the type of work that they're doing every day, and maybe their location. Are they happy with where they live? Helping people really assess what's working and what's not working can be helpful at the very beginning of our time with them, so that we know where to focus. And again, we can say, what part of their career do they really want to change? Maybe it's what they're doing, maybe it's where they're doing it. And there's a whole host of things that they could change. Commute, longer versus shorter. Yes. Maybe in the office versus at home. Yeah, and these are all related to their values. So you could do a values exercise as well. Values card sorts. There's a lot of just check mark values exercises that you could do with clients to help them see, are they getting what they want out of work? And I usually break our values exercise for the Career Transition Coach program is broken into sections. What you want out of work, the type, what you do, and then also the kind of additional values in terms of getting the financial reward, or loving the work that you do versus where you live versus work-life balance. And having people kind of prioritize those can be helpful, which is one of the things that's nice about the card sorts, or even if you get a checklist, helping people prioritize that, because we're not always going to get everything out of work and life. And those priorities can help us really zero in on what matters right now, and what might I have to give up a little bit at this point in my life. And maybe, if I want to make more money, it means that I'm not going to have as great of work-life balance. Or if I want to live in this location, it means that I'm not going to command as high of a salary. And we want to really think about those trade-offs, because they might not necessarily be true, but there are going to be some trade-offs that we have to make in our work. And it's one of my favorite activities that we created years ago for a program at the Workforce Center, actually. And everyone that I've shared it with has just really enjoyed that kind of priorities or trade-offs and thinking about that. So you could create something like that for your clients, and helping them walk through what really matters and what is really bothering them right now, what is really not working in their life, because their career might be part of it, but we might be jumping ship too quickly. So here's the other thing that I see with clients, and this is especially true right now. Michelle Carroll, our other instructor for the Career Transition Coach program, she and I were just talking about this, that people may need to make a transition right now because their industry is struggling. But they could really jump out of the frying pan into the fire if they try to make a transition that doesn't work, that takes longer than it's going to take for the hospitality industry to come back, right? So what can they do that is a step change? If they want to change what they do, could they stay in the same industry? And if they need to change their industry, how could they stay as close as possible to their similar role? Because that's going to be the fastest transition. And then they might make the next step to change their role as well, if they want to change both their role in the industry long term. For women, and I'm going to be live on Thursday with Kamara Toplow, and we're going to be talking about women job search and women issues. So I'll post that in the group as well, so you can find that and join us live if you want to, for our International Women's Month, I guess, and National Women's Day was yesterday. But if we're thinking about, our female clients who may have taken a step back or out of the workforce during this time to take care of their kids, homeschool their kids, all of those things, really we're going to want to keep them as close to what they were doing before they left as possible for a quick transition. Now, if they've got some ability to take a little bit longer or take some classes or something that's not necessarily true or not required, and if they are looking to get back into the workforce quickly, what we know is that your fastest job search is in a role you've been doing in the industry you've been doing it in. Why? Because on paper you look great and your network is there, and it's just easier to speak to your qualifications when you've been doing that type of work. If they want to take a step in a different direction, how could they change their industry but stay in the same role, or change their role but stay in the same industry? That one's a little bit harder than changing industries but in the same role. Can be done. It's really about making the connections, which is all of what we all help someone do. But oftentimes when people are frustrated and upset, they'll come in and kind of want to fire sale it all, right? Let's just blow it up and start over. And that's usually not helpful for people, because it means being out of work longer, a harder job search, perhaps taking a lower pay when they do get that role. And we want to help them think about those trade-offs before they make the fire sale, because it may not be necessary to get what they want, to be satisfied, to be happy, to be fulfilled. They may not need to do that. It just feels like the right thing to do sometimes when we get really frustrated or when things aren't going well or when we've been struggling. And so just thinking about that and helping them walk through that. It's pretty common sense that if I'm going to go for a new job, the most qualified I can be, the better off I'll be in terms of my search. But of course, when we're in crisis and in that flight, freeze mode, we aren't always thinking about what the realities might be and how that might help us move forward. So any other tips or tricks that you have, feel free to share them. Feel free to email me them. Again, we've got our certified career transition coach starting tomorrow. Michelle, Carol, and I, always a fun group of coaches. Now, sometimes people will write to me and they say, Marie, I'm already really experienced as a coach. Is this for me? And if you're looking to put structure to your career transition process or launch a new career transition process, this is the program, because we give you all the tools that you need to do that. So you'll get 15 plus worksheets that you can walk clients through, and you'll get the structure in the process. And you'll also get consulting on building your process, because your homework is to write down what you're going to implement and how you're going to implement it with your clients. And then Michelle and I review it and give you feedback on it. So you get that process of putting something in place. And I've seen a few of you in the group talking about, clients that are struggling and they're kind of not connecting the dots. They come to you and they say they want to make a change, but then they peter out. Now, nothing is, always going to solve all the problems. But what I love about the process is that it really gives you the steps to walk through with the client, and it gives them the process, the roadmap, so that they see where they're headed. One of my new trainers that I've been learning from, Sherry Yellen, she talks about how people don't resist change, they resist confusion. And as a coach, our challenge is to walk that line between providing structure and letting the client be directive. So we give you the structure that you can set up for the client so that then they can direct the process within that structure and achieve their goals. And I just love that part of it, that the process is set up for you and then you can walk them through it. So let me know if you have any questions on that. And then, of course, we've got our symposium starting next week. And Susan Britton, who we've talked about a couple of times, she has a couple of interviews that she's done with me. One was on the fright, flight, freeze to calm, confident, creative. And so if you haven't listened to that, I'll put it in the link in the notes here too. But she's always inspirational and also giving us tools to help clients through that fight, flight, freeze. So here's the links to the resources about career change. So again, hopefully this can be helpful if you're working with or trying to market to career changers. You can share some of these links with them. And I'm going to drop the Forbes one in here, even though I can't show you the article because I'm over my limit there. And then I'll come back and in the comments, I'll drop the link to that radio interview with Susan on the brain science of helping people get unstuck, because it's really powerful. If there's any other things that you would like to chat about, feel free to let me know. And I'll post in the group here. I'm going live with Kamara on Thursday to talk about women's issues in job search and motherhood bias and all of those things. And so I'll probably also go live on Thursday before that to talk about the resume language issues and the difference between pronouns and third person voice, because we've seemed to have a little bit of confusion about that in our Facebook group. So I'll see you next week here on our weekly live. Thank you.